Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today I want to talk about Dungeons & Dragons, and I want to answer the question, if Gary Gygax was born in 1980, if he published Dungeons & Dragons today, okay, first of all, how would that happen? Let's assume he would publish at the same age he did in 1974. When he published in 1974, he was 36 years old, okay, and that's because he was born in 1938. If he was to publish today, in 2023, first of all, that would have meant that he was born in 1987. So if Gary Gygax was born in 1987, published Dungeons & Dragons when he was 36 years old, would he Kickstarter? And here's the answer. Absolutely not. No way. And the reason why is, first of all, it's impossible, right? Kickstarter is small and scrubby, right? That's like, it's an idea. It's for people who have an idea who do not have the wherewithal to overcome the hurdles, right, of doing a project at scale and doing a project professionally. And there are, and you're like, oh, I don't know, Scott, there's some really good stuff that comes out of Kickstarter. Yeah, and then there's like there's Skarka, who took 12 years to fulfill, right? And there's 100 other absolute horror stories, and there are dozens of circumstances where backers needed to be rescued. It's very common, right? And the thing is, Gary was able to invent Dungeons & Dragons because he was epic in every single way. He was a commercial force and he was a creative force, and his only real downfall was not realizing that he couldn't be a creative force and a commercial force forever, right? It absolutely was necessary to, like, first of all, Gary Gygax was necessary to overcome Dave Arneson. Dave Arneson was a human sack, right? He sat there and did nothing. He brought a few ideas. He literally typed up nothing. He did none of the typing. He's, oh, here's a couple ideas, blah, 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 blah. Just all talk, right? No action, right? And when it came time to literally sit down, type up the material on a typewriter, because that's what they had back then, right? Not everybody had a computer, right? Gary did that, right? And then when it came, and then, you know, and so Gary took all the ideas of both of them and put them into, you know, into Dungeons & Dragons. Literally, Dave Arneson did none of the work. Like, just like, you know, spat a couple ideas out of his head, did none of the hard labor. None of the shoe leather of Dungeons & Dragons was done by Dave Arneson, right? Look it up. You'll find out this is true, right? Then, in addition to that, when it came time to fund it, right, Gary Gygax went out and found the Bloom Brothers, right? So he did the creative work, and he did the actual creative work, and he did the actual commercial work, and he lifted that thing up. And how would he do that today? He absolutely would not touch Kickstarter with a 10-foot pole, right? No way Gary Gygax would do a Kickstarter. No possible way, okay? So what would he do, right? He would do a startup. I really think he would do a startup. And so basically, he would fund it through venture capitalists, and I think today he would have gotten $10 million, right? And what he would have done is he would have Kickstartered, and I think what he would have done was he would have published Dungeons & Dragons as one 300-page gold leaf book, right? And I believe he would have typed up all the ideas himself, right? And then he would have gotten professional artists. He would not have used his friends, right? And it would have had top-tier art. It would have had his writing, and then it would have had someone else's layout, right? Probably like Ingrid Bernal from Runehammer, right? And actually, you know, and at this point, of course, Ingrid Bernal would not be doing, you know, TTRPG design. He would probably be in video games doing visuals there. So he would have, you know, he would have used the top tier talents of visual artists from video games, and then created a 300-page leather-bound gold leaf, brilliant. And that would have cost $300, and I think he would have printed about 100,000 of them and sent them off into the ether, right? So I do not think for 1 second that Gary Gygax would touch Kickstarter with a 10-foot pole. He was too epic. And I think he would want to bring a level of professionalism to it that you could do today with venture capitalists. And you would need a force of venture capitalists don't just line up to put money into something. They're like, can you 10x? And I think Gary is definitely the guy who would be like, oh yeah, we can 10x, no problem. So I think he would have had a line of venture capitalists. He would have done a startup. That startup probably would have had about 10 employees to bring it to fruition, and I think they would have done it on a $10 million budget. But there's absolutely no possibility that Gary Gygax, if he published Dungeons & Dragons game, he would not have done it through Kickstarter. He would have said, nope, that is unprofessional scrub work. There's absolutely no way we're going to take this transformative idea and run it through. And the reason why I'm saying this is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Other Strangeness. Palladium Books has been publishing books for 3 decades, and they're going to Kickstarter that book, right? You're like, oh, we can't take the risk of printing a book. We've only had 3 decades of experience with it. It's such a huge risk. You know, I don't think he would understand that anything of great depth, right, and the value and the cultural impact of Dungeons & Dragons could never be run through Kickstarter, and that's why it's not Kickstarter today, right? And it's the difference between why Dungeons & Dragons is life-changing and why every OSR product and every indie product is nothing but a fun tassel, right? It's the book and it's the tassel that hangs off the book, right? Like, Dungeons & Dragons is the thing. The OSR and the indies can't even figure out what the thing is. Every single word of that is my humble opinion. What's important is when I get to hear your humble opinion. When you get in the comments and send your traffic. Please consider subscribing and have a wonderful millennium.